And we are back. Welcome back into the Pigskin Cafe. The morning is over. The sadness is over. This is a new episode. It is a new day and it's a new plate.
Even though it's not.
Even though it's not. It's a new plate ahead of you and in front of you. We've got a big special to talk about. Lots of things going on in college football this week. Man, we're going to break down UCLA and Oregon, a big battle in the Pac-12. UCLA, the only undefeated team left. Who would have predicted that?
Mm-hmm.
Bama and Mississippi State. We broke down Alabama and Tennessee in the last episode. Can Alabama rebound and beat the Bulldogs at home? Going to Syracuse and Clemson, another undefeated matchup in the ACC. Clemson is playing their best football right now, but Syracuse is too. They are flying under the radar, and they keep beating good teams. We got Oklahoma State and Texas, the battle for the Big 12. Oklahoma State coming off a 3-point loss to TCU. Texas coming off a 3-point win against Iowa State. What's going to be the difference in that game? And lastly, we're going to end it with Ole Miss heading down to Baton Rouge and LSU. LSU coming off a big win against Florida in the Swamp. Ole Miss coming off an eager against Auburn, but Auburn probably played their best football of the season. Will offense be the difference in that game, or will defense? We're going to break it down. But joining me this time, I've got a brother, and I've got a brother that it feels like. I've got Chase and Hampton joining me. Glad to be back with you, fellas.
Absolutely. It's like we just recorded another pod.
That's right. Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
That was an inside joke if you have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah. Hey, well, let's go ahead and start off with
I got him. I was going to be tickled the whole episode.
I'm just thinking of that certain person walking up a hill, and that just got me.
It's like pulling teeth, brother.
Ain't no lie. Go ahead.
Glad to be here. Just not here for not the best at conversation, but glad to be here.
He's glad to be here,
baby.
Hey, we're glad that you're here. We're glad you're listening too. We're going to start off on the West Coast. We're going with UCLA and Oregon. Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Chip Kelly. I mean, they keep winning, and part of it's not surprising, but part of it is USC loses to Utah, and that leaves UCLA as the only undefeated team in the Pac-12 remaining. Hampton, let's start off with you. It's a quarterback matchup. Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Bo Nix are facing off this week. Let me see if I can find where the game is. It is
Oregon.
going to be – is it at Oregon?
In Eugene, Yep.
It's in Eugene. Oregon's favored by 6 points. Hampton, tell us what you think about this game.
Very interesting game. I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Chip Kelly and DTR have been a lethal combo this year. It's kind of finally all culminated together. I know UCLA has shown glimpses of potential in the past few years with DTR. Beating LSU, I think, at the beginning of last year was a big statement win. And they've got a really good run game with DTR and Zach Charbonnet. But then you look at Oregon, who has rebounded really well after losing to Georgia. Bo Nix has been really good, like I predicted before the year. Come on. And Dan Lanning has really kind of righted the ship. And it's interesting because this game, I think, is 80% chance of rain. And I think that does play a factor because Oregon, Bo Nix obviously uses his legs, but he's been really good through the air. But UCLA is very much a ground predicated attack. And I've got the Bruins staying undefeated. DTR and Chip Kelly keep the train rolling and beat the Oregon Ducks. If it's a pretty day, if it's, no conditions, I think I'd pick Oregon. But because of the fact that it's going to be raining, give me the run heavy Bruins. Chase, what you got?
Yeah, that's a good take, man. And I didn't know about the weather, so that kind of made me reconsider. I think that you're onto something, though. Weather, you can try to act like it doesn't play, like it's big of a factor as it does, but we've seen even in the NFL, I mean, we've seen that big time in Chicago specifically. But man, I think I'm going to go with the Oregon Ducks here. I will not take the spread on that though. I don't like 6 points. That's a lot of points.
That's steep.
That's very steep. I'm not there with that. But here it is. I think that Bo Nix. I think we all thought that he was going to show up against Georgia. I was convinced they were even going to win that game.
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to whether he's going to throw interceptions or not. He is a very talented quarterback. If Dan Lanning has really shaped him into like, hey, you've got all the gifts and talent that you need. You just have to like when you throw interceptions, it takes us out of ball games. Man, if he can keep molding and shaping him, he might really move himself up in the draft. And anyways, so I think I'm going to go with Oregon here because I think that Bo Nix does not throw interceptions. And I say that knowing that you're either completely right or completely wrong when you say that about this guy because he has a little bit of Carson Wentz in him. And I think I've said that before on this podcast of just like, man, he has everything you're looking for except for the 4 plays during the game that he makes really bad decisions and trusts his gifts a little bit too much. But here's what I say all that to say. I think the challenge against Georgia, I think maybe for him felt a little bit too daunting. Hey, it was just too much. It was David Goliath. I think this one is a very winnable game. It's at home. And I think for him, I think it gets him excited. And he plays a lot better when he's excited rather than when he's a little bit nervous. So I think it's when he feels like he can show off his gifts rather than like, man, if I mess up, then I'm going to screw this whole thing up. So anyways, so Graham, I don't know. How does that kind of land for you? This is Pac-12. It's kind of hard to really have a good pulse on this, but you might. Is there anything that's kind of convincing you one way or the other?
Yeah, Hampton decided the game based off the rain. If rain's a factor, I'm going with Oregon because it rains almost every day in Oregon. What team's going to have more practice in the rain than Oregon?
That's right. Those UCLA guys not going to know what it is.
That's true, too. That's a good point. Great point.
And so another big stat that I found, Oregon averages about 240 yards on the ground every game, which is a ton. UCLA does not average that much. UCLA averages about 211, so about a 30-yard difference in Oregon's favor. Man, if we're talking about the rushing game, I'll go with Oregon. I think Oregon wins this one at home. Zach Charbonnet, Hampton, like you said, he's a great running back. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, great quarterback. I just think that home field advantage, going to be a true road test for UCLA and Chip Kelly coming home. Don't know if there's going to be a lot of love lost there.
Ooh, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's
a good point. Look at you, Graham. My guy prep for this one.
Man, I'm telling you. Let's move. We're going to keep going from west to east. Let's take a stop in Stillwater. Oklahoma State taking on Texas. Like I said earlier, Oklahoma State coming off a 3-point loss to TCU. Texas coming off a 3-point win against Iowa State. Chase, let's start off with you since you're our Big 12 expert.
That's right.
Which think's going to be the difference this game? You think you think Oklahoma State rebounds? You think Texas comes into Stillwater and takes one? Texas is favored by 7.5, I believe.
Ooh, now that's one of those games that if I was a betting man, I think that I take Oklahoma State, but I think I take them to win this game. I think Oklahoma State has a really, really good ball team, and I think that, man, it came down to the end. I think they lost that game against who they played? They played TCU.
TCU. They had a 14-point lead. They blew that game.
They blew it. I think they might even be experiencing a little bit more of like, hey, or the same scenario as Alabama of like, hey, you got to get up and keep playing. We can learn a lot from this. I think that we'll learn. This is going to be one of those games. It's like, okay, now how good is UT? They're a lot better than they have been in years past, but I think that Oklahoma State has been building. I think that they win the Big 12, and I think that they just everything's kind of fallen in line for them, minus the letting them come back and win, letting TCU win. So, simply put, I take Oklahoma State, and that spread is really steep. I think that's a little bit of homer. Like, man, people just love UT. They figure they have that just we're UT, so we're gonna win, and they'll be good. But I think Oklahoma State has the pieces to match up against them. I think they always have a good defense, but I think they can score. Like they can score, and I think that they're not gonna shy away from any punches when it comes to UT. Nothing gets UT, no matter how good or bad they are. They have that man, you can lose every game, but if you beat UT, like that's the one you're circling. And get this, here's your Big 12 insider information. It is homecoming for Oklahoma State playing UT, which is a very bold move, but that's the only way that Oklahoma State wants it, I think.
So it's in Oklahoma State. It's at Oklahoma State?
Yeah, so Stillwater.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, they circled this one, and I think they want all the smoke.
They want all the smoke. Well, I'll go next, and I'll make it quick. I'm a man, and I'm not 40. Shout out Mike Gundy, but I'm going with the Cowboys, man.
Yeah.
I think the perception of Texas was inflated by that Oklahoma game where they scored 49 on them. Quinn Ewers was throwing it all over the place. I think people looked at that team and said, oh, they're back and they're dominant. They came back to earth against Iowa State, who has a really good defense, and your favorite coach, Matt Campbell, Chase. But I think Quinn Ewers didn't play very well this last game. I think for the most part, up until the very end of the game, Oklahoma State limited that TCU offense to Max Duggar, I believe is his name. And Spencer Sanders is the key. He will lead them to victory. Big win on homecoming for the Pokes. Give me Oklahoma State. Graham, what you got?
Yeah, before this past week, Quinn Ewers, whenever he was playing quarterback for Texas, they averaged the most points per possession in college football. And I think that they were really, I felt you got a good grip of Texas against Iowa State because Iowa State's one of those gritty teams. They're never going to lose by 10. They're always going to give their best effort, even if they're not in your same league. Give me Oklahoma State and Spencer Sanders. I think that's if it's a quarterback matchup, give me the guy that's been there and that's done it. And if you've ever seen Oklahoma State Stadium, literally the fans are the out of bounds lines.
It's really cool.
It is tiny.
Really cool.
It is very tiny. There's not a whole lot of football field on there, so there's going to be no words to be heard on Texas sideline. And the tickets for this game start as low as $120. So they're going to be packing out Boone Pickens Stadium in Stillwater. So give me Oklahoma State. I think we'll sweep that. So that definitely means Texas is going to win this one.
Probably.
Let's go to the AC.
Let me say one quick thing. We brought up Matt Campbell, and every time we do, we got to speak just a little bit of reason along
the gospel.
Dude, this guy, I don't hate the guy.
This guy, Al.
Dude, his name is linked to every coaching opening. What do you want about this guy? Like, he had one good year where I think that he beat Ohio State and somebody else in the same, maybe Oklahoma in the same year. And all of a sudden, this dude's like the best coach that you could bring into your program. Let me just tell you, this is the only thing I'm going to say. Does anybody know what their record is in the Big 12 this year?
0-3?
0-3. Why would you want that? If you're Auburn, why would you want Matt Campbell? If you're any of these teams, what attracts you about that? Graham, continue. Him and what PJ Fleck. Both those dudes selling snake oil.
Row that boat, baby.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Who they lose to? They lose to Illinois this past week.
They lost to Illinois.
Illinois got them Illinois Fighting Illini looking good this year.
All I'm saying is those guys were brought in. They had a couple of good seasons. All of a sudden, they're the best thing since sliced bread. You need to bring them in to be your coach. And I have just seen everybody around them pass them when it comes to how good head coaches are in their conference. Graham, we can continue. Matt Campbell and PJ Fleck.
Yeah, I'll say one thing about Matt Campbell. He should have left sooner. But in his defense, there's very little talent that wants to go to Iowa State.
Yeah.
Name a 5-star that wants to be a Cyclone. There aren't any.
Josh Pate.
All right, so let's move to the ACC and another undefeated matchup. Clemson coming off a big win. We've got Syracuse beating NC State at home, but NC State was without Leary, their starting quarterback, who's now out for the year. This one is in Clemson in Death Valley. Chase, I'm going to throw it back to you. What you think about this one?
Man, I tell you what, I feel like every time Clemson gets put in this situation, man, they pull the right name out of the hat. They got this game at home, which just plays a massive factor. And I think it's because Syracuse, they're undefeated. They've had a great season. Here comes Duncan to make this pick. But I think that they always seem to just pull when it's yeah, man. They just get to play these games at home. It seems like every time that there's a big game that's like, man, this is gonna fun. I know they just played Florida State. Florida State wasn't even ranked, and we were talking about them getting upset. Yeah, give me Clemson. I think they win this game by 14 points. What do you think, Hampton?
I think Dino Babers has done a great job at Syracuse.
Yeah.
Garrett Trader has had a really good year. They played a pretty weak schedule, if we're being honest. Undefeated, nothing to scoff at, but Clemson wins this. They probably win it pretty comfortably. DJU is playing better. Will Shipley's been really good. Joseph Ngata, their receiver, making plays, and their defense is one of the best in the nation. Easy pick. Give me Clemson. What you got, Graham?
Yeah, I believe it's Sean Tucker for Syracuse. I love his Twitter. After every game, he gives himself a grade. I feel like I had a good game and gives the stats. I kind of like that. I don't know why. I feel like I'm reading a newspaper. But he's got 6 touchdowns on the year, so Syracuse has got a little bit of momentum. But man, Chase, like you said, Clemson always gets these games at home. It's a 13.5 point. Clemson's 13.5 point favorites. And this one, I might take the points. I think that's probably a 2 touchdown game is probably fair. So give me Clemson. I think they're playing well. Hampton, we're gonna go to let's go to Alabama and Mississippi State. We might sit here and talk about this one for a couple minutes. Alabama looking to rebound, but so is Mississippi State. They had a tough loss to Kentucky. A real barn burner, 27-17, which is very low scoring for Mississippi State, pretty high scoring for Kentucky. Hampton, why don't you start us off with that?
I'm going to actually make this one pretty quick. Alabama, the past 2 years against Mike Leach, has done as good a job of anybody at limiting that offense, and I don't think it's going to be any different this year. Alabama is focused. They're determined. After that loss, they're going to rebound, and I think they're going to beat Mississippi State by a significant margin. If they don't, I'll be worried. I think Bryce Young will have a big day. I'm anxious to see how the defense responds and if any of the personnel / scheme changes that we talked about in the last pod are applied to this game. They have similar attacks, but Mississippi State doesn't have the dudes at receiver, and they don't play the no-huddle type offense that Tennessee and Heupel do. And the one thing I'm really watching in this game, and I mentioned it a little bit in the last pod, Alabama receivers. Can the young guys continue to take advantage of the opportunities? I want to see Ja'Cory Brooks, Bond, Prentice, JoJo, throw in Burton every now and then if Tyler Harrell can get on the field and contribute, and I'm not putting expectations on that, let's see him, see what he's got. But I think you ride with those young guys. They've given you the most to be excited about. That's what I'm looking for in this game. Alabama in a big one. Chase, what about you?
Yeah, I think that's good analysis. The thing, I agree with all of it. I think that one thing Mike Leach might do, though, this is just kind of like, well, I'll tack on to everything you just said. I bet they come out and I bet they have their wide receivers almost touching the boundary or something. Sure. I guarantee that he's like, you got to show me that you've made adjustments. You can stop this. But you said an important thing just to clarify, just like, man, this team doesn't play as fast as Tennessee does. And one of the things that I meant to mention, and not going back to this, but I've heard even Alabama say, hey, everybody else, when you're playing against a fast offense, you fake injuries. And Alabama their pride won't let them. I don't know. It's like, even is there going to be a philosophy change? I don't think so. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that they'll probably be. I think that Mississippi State scores 14. Like, they'll score some touchdowns. They'll bust one.
They have in the past 2 years. That'll be interesting. They've only scored 9 points in the past 2 years.
Dang, well, now you got me rethinking. But anyways, give me the tie. Give me my lot. All right.
Roll Tide, Duncan.
Yeah, Alabama's favored by 21 points at home in Bryant-Denny. But our thoughts and prayers go out to Mississippi State. They lost a football player, Sam Westmoreland. I don't know if any of us have ever heard of him.
No.
But I mean, that definitely hits home. It's hard to lose. friends, family members. Hard to lose people on a football team like Mississippi State. They're well known. So thoughts and prayers go to him and Mississippi State in this one. We talked about it earlier in the year. Mississippi State's going through a gauntlet of a schedule.
Yep.
I mean, they're just in the middle of it. I mean, one punch after another after another. They got Alabama this week, Auburn next week, Georgia the week after that. And I mean, you talk about you can't take any weeks off. I think they'd love one anytime. Man, I will take the Tide here. I don't know if Alabama wins by 21, but Alabama has had Mississippi State's number these past few years on defense. So I think we're all in agreement. So I think the Tide are going to take care of business at home. Finally, we're going down to Baton Rouge, to Cajun country, and we're going to have Ole Miss and LSU. Chase, I want to start off with you. LSU coming off a big win. Jaden Daniels played fairly well against Florida. I mean, it was
really well.
It was like tied at halftime almost, and then LSU just came out and put it to them that second half. If you think it's quarterback matchup, how does LSU fare?
I think I pick LSU here, guys, and I know that's out there. It's not something I would put money behind, but I think they're playing at LSU. You get a home game, like you said. Jane Daniels playing better. I think though this is my difference is I just don't know if Ole Miss, they're getting into the beef of their schedule. Is Jackson Dart, is he going to be a dude or not? That's the question to be answered. When I watched that Auburn game, they kind of played with Auburn, and Auburn will show that they'll show up to a football game. You got to take them out. Like you got to separate the gap. You're better, and I just don't know if this guy, he just seems a little young. Like I don't know if he's quite the leader on that team to say, hey, we're better. We're gonna like go down there and beat them. I think it's gonna be a hostile environment. I think LSU gets excited for this one because man, they can knock off somebody. So that's who Jackson Dart. But I think that for him, if he becomes a man, like not that he's not, but if he mans up and he takes over this game, a lot of respect. But I don't think that he does. That's why I give LSU this one. I think he's a little shaky. How do you think, Hampton?
I agree with you. I was very alarmed. Spot on, baby. Lowercase s, capital P, and so forth and so on. I was very concerned with what I saw from Ole Miss this past Saturday. They made Auburn look competent on offense. Auburn's not looked competent on offense all year, except maybe that first game. I mean, even their second game, I think, against Georgia State, they didn't look competent. And they allowed 34 points. They allowed many rushing yards. I mean, Tank Bigsby had by far his best day. Robbie Ashford, by far his best day. And your point about Jackson Dart, I think, is correct. No one throws more interceptable passes, I swear, than Jackson Dart. And in a hostile environment on the road, I think LSU grabs a couple picks. I think they get that momentum going. And Jane Daniels might have turned a corner against Florida. And with what Ole Miss showed this past weekend, I think he takes advantage, has another good game. LSU wins. And I think it shows that while Ole Miss is a good team, I think they've been inflated a little bit by a pretty weak schedule to this point, other than maybe Kentucky. Kentucky was about the only other quality opponent they played. Give me LSU, man. I'm totally with you. Graham, do you agree, or you're going to dissent in this case?
I think y'all set it up too easy for me to pick Ole Miss. But I think y'all's analysis is right. This is Ole Miss's third away game of the year. Their first one was at Georgia Tech. They won 42-0. Their second away game, Vanderbilt. They have not faced a true road opponent.
No.
Very good football team.
Very good football team.
Never forget.
Vanderbilt significantly better than they have been in the past. But I think the atmosphere in LSU is going to be like anything Ole Miss has seen to this point. So yeah, I could very well see it happening, but give me Ole Miss. I just think they have more guns. They got more ammo. I think they can take care of business on the road. But it's going to be a close one for sure.
It absolutely is, Graham. And great job guiding us through this preview. Do y'all have anything else to say before we hop on out of here?
Mm.
Think I'm good, man. Hey, another slate though of good college football.
Absolutely. And I wanted to say before we got out of here, even though our team lost last weekend, last Saturday showed you why college football is the best sport in the world. From 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. that night when Utah took down USC, it showed you the magic and the pageantry, tradition, and the craziness of this sport we love. And we're going to get another great week of games. And I, for one, cannot wait. The Alabama-Tennessee game, highest ranked college football game since Alabama-LSU in 2019. And we know what kind of game that was. Peaked with 17 million viewers. Just awesome, magical, all the adjectives. Great weekend slate. And I cannot wait for this weekend and to recap it next week with you two gentlemen. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the Pigskin Cafe. If you haven't checked out our Alabama-Tennessee recap, be sure to do that before this weekend's slate of games. And if you're new here to our YouTube channel, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and hit that notification bell so you'll be updated anytime a new video goes live from the Pigskin Cafe. Be sure to follow us on social media to engage in the conversation there and to be up to date on any show times or any polls we have going on. The Pigskin Cafe is closed for now, but until next time when we're recapping college football week 8 and we'll be 2/3 of the way done with the college football season, chew on that.